Hi, my name is Daniel Pickart. I'm the manager of the product development team at Jama Network. And I'm going to try to talk through this very quickly. The idea behind this really brief talk is around how to harness multimedia. We're approaching this from a slightly different direction, which is that once you have your content, what can you do with it? How do you best make use of that? And so a really brief introduction. JAMA Network is the peer-reviewed journals for the American Medical Association. We have 13 journals. We publish around 5,500 articles per year, and we are part of a product management team within that journal system. And we have a large number of electronic properties that we maintain. My team in particular focuses on the research of new technologies and products, and working internally to collaborate to figure out how best to get new products designed, tested, and out the door. So the reason this is a little bit different is that I came into this position with a wealth of audio content. I joined the organization 2 years ago, and we had started doing podcasts as early as 2008. We ramped that up in 2011, and so by the time I came in, there was a huge amount of audio content. Editorial had taken it very seriously. They put together remarkably well-crafted content that was able to communicate the complexity of primary research articles, synthesize that down to 20 to 30-minute podcasts that were not only engaging but genuinely entertaining. So at this point, we have 21 podcast titles. We get about 3 million downloads per year, and we have our user base. So we already have, at this point, a pretty mature audio content collection. So when thinking about what to do with this, the question becomes, how do you build a business model around this? There's a really big issue, which is that users don't expect to pay for multimedia. That's expected to be free. And so even if you can get to a point where users are willing to pay for that content, you're still reducing the efficacy of that media, because that is the media that gets shared. It's the media that gets you out and recognized. It is our most shareable, and it's a really powerful media to have out in the world. So hiding that behind a paywall is problematic for us. And so we had to start thinking through the related and kind of adjacent products that we have around this. Do we have existing products that we can integrate audio into and make use of it that way? Or is there a way for us to augment this and build something on top so that we can keep the content itself free, but have that other layer be something that we can monetize? So we're going to talk through this case study of our use of podcasts here. And the way we started thinking about it is that we have an education product, JM Learning. And JM Learning is predominantly journal-based CME. CME is the continuing education credits necessary for physicians to be able to stay certified. And so every year there's a number of credits that they have to earn. And so at this point, what we had was a great platform that provided journal articles that users could read, answer a few questions, and be able to earn their credits for their CME. So there's a really easy way for us to start thinking about what does that look like if we start bringing audio into that universe. So the way I was thinking about this is a kind of a Venn diagram of sorts. We have really good audio content that we feel pretty strongly about, that we think of as kind of a content asset. We have, as we started thinking through this idea, we saw again and again in surveys that there were physicians who were kind of non sequitur and open response fields stating that they were having a really hard time finding ways to be up to date with their CME credits because they couldn't fit it into everyday life. They had to commit to conferences, they had to commit to large chunks of activities, and so already you can kind of see there's a synergy here with podcasts, which are a very lightweight way for somebody to ingest content while doing other activities, while commuting, while doing laundry, etc. And the third part was the JM Learning product that we had was skewing towards an older physician audience. And then, so bring in audio, we're actually providing a way for us to reach out to the younger physicians with a media that is more appealing to the younger generation. So all that is kind of our starting point. We then brought together a ton of stakeholders. We went through several different iterations of trying to define what products would be useful, what kind of features would be useful. We found ways to bring that in and synthesize it with a lot of research we had done previously into the marketplace, as well as just the feedback we'd received over the years through surveys. From that, we started putting together really early versions of what this product might look like. And we put this out again and again and iterated very quickly because we wanted to make sure we understood what the structure of this product was going to be if we were going to find something that was going to really leverage our multimedia content. We had some hypotheses that did not go well. We had some where we thought that they would want a curriculum, that there would be a need for a physician to say, I want to know about some form of treatment and get all of the content that they need for that bit of information. We found that through each of these iterations, there were structural changes that we needed to make to get ourselves to something that would be a light touch, easy use product for physicians. And so by the time we decided to partner with an external vendor, we had a really clear idea of exactly what we were building. We had screenshots of exactly what we wanted. We had our user stories. We had them prioritized, and we knew exactly what our MVP was going to be, trying to get something out the door. The result of that is Jay and Listen. It's basically a podcast app that allows physicians to listen to our content and take very brief quizzes afterwards. And by doing so, they earned CME credits. There's a curation aspect to this, and there's a couple of feature sets that we learned about while doing our early testing that were really, really important. One of which is that if a physician misses a question, if they answer it incorrectly, they want immediate access to the point in the media where that's answered. And so we found a way to do that. And we also found a way to make sure that they had immediate access to the credit once it's earned, and that it went through all of our downstream processes and was fully in our systems. So really, this is kind of our idea of the next step. You have the content. How do you find a way to monetize it? How do you find a way to leverage it in a really meaningful way for the organization? There is another what next, which is that when you build a product, you're making a promise to the consumers, to the people who are using this product, regarding the regularity, the quality of the content. And so there's a need to understand your workflows, because at this point, you're obligating yourselves to produce high quality content regularly. And so we did a couple of things to make sure that we were able to do this. One of which is we sat down with everybody involved with the production of our audio content. And we asked them again and again and again to describe exactly what they went through in order to build a single episode. And as they did that, we kept on drawing different versions of this, and we finally got to one where we all looked at it and said, this is our process, this is what's happening. We then asked them to journal, so that every time that they did a podcast, we were able to put time values for each of those blocks, for each process that they engaged in. And what this allowed us to do is to locate a bunch of bottlenecks that were unnecessary, that we could kind of alleviate to make sure that we could keep up with the content production obligations that we had. The most interesting one was that we found that there was a lot of time being spent trying to find the audio, like the little music bits that were used for the production to kind of to make the high production value content. And because we didn't have a library we were paying for, we had people spending hours trying to find free content. And so this was something that was really easy for us to address, to make sure that we were able to streamline this process and make sure it works as we scale up. And the second bit is our publication workflow. We had to make sure we understood exactly what was happening with each stage of the content creation. This is a somewhat abbreviated version of this. So there are a lot of teams, a lot of systems that touch content as it goes from early concept to delivery to the final system. And as we talk to these teams, they have a really amazing set of systems, and they have the ability for us to come into their universe and say, we want you to basically double the workload when it comes to audio content. To get content put into an app was untenable. There was just no way we could double the amount that we were asking of that group. And so we sat down and, with an internal developer, worked with them hand in hand to think through what we could automate. And we were able to find some really simple ways for us to streamline the automation for the delivery of content to the app itself. And we got it to a point where the only point at which we require a human element from the publication workflow at the end is a QA step. Everything from aggregating the metadata to being able to pull down the location of where that audio file is hosted, all of that information is automated at this point. So really, I think for us, we thought of it as kind of 3 stages. We needed to figure out how best we could find a way to use this content and build a business model around it. We then had to figure out how to build a product that would deliver that. And finally, we had to figure out how to streamline and refine our workflows so that we could make sure that it was a sustainable process that we built. And that's about it.
That's perfect.
Cool.
Are you leaving?
All right.
What's occurring now?
I know. I've got 3 microphones somehow. Thank you very much. So we have about 15 minutes for questions, and I would like to just start by opening questions to the audience. See if you have any questions for the panel, and if anybody wants to answer who's not on the panel, you're welcome to do that. So anybody? Okay. Just one. You sure?
Yeah.
You don't want
No, you need to for the recording because it's being recorded.
For the psych therapy videos, the psychotherapy session, are they actual patients?
Well, that's a tricky question. They're not actual patients because that implies that the therapist bringing someone from their practice in. They're people that we advertise that this therapist coming down, say, hey, look, are you experiencing depression or whatever the issue is? We're doing this demonstration for training purposes. Would you like to volunteer to sit with a therapist as a client? And so they're talking about the real problems. So in a sense, like, they are actual clients, but we don't actually use that phrase.
So that doesn't cross into the doctor-patient privacy privilege? Do they have to sign any kind of privacy waivers?
They do, yeah.
And do you put disclaimers on your content to the users saying don't distribute this outside?
Absolutely, yeah. We have consent and waiver that the clients sign, and we're very upfront about how we sell, market, and where the videos are going to be. We also have a disclaimer on psych therapy and on the streaming versions of the videos and at the front of the DVD that explains exactly how they're to be used, what context, and so forth. So we try to, as much as possible, protect the privacy of the client. I mean, as much as possible with a video that you're selling.
Anybody? All right, I have questions. But obviously, as you can probably tell, we talked a lot about success stories, and I think we did want this to be a really optimistic panel.
You need to turn it on, Philan.
There you go. All right. That was an interesting. It's fine if it's not in the recording. So we do have a lot of success stories, and I do think that there are a lot of success stories as well in the white paper. But obviously there are challenges. If you're here, it's probably because you think multimedia is important, or we had other very interesting concurrent sessions. So we're assuming that that you do think it's important, but there are challenges, and I think I've been talking to publishers for I think the past couple of years about the challenges that they're encountering, and it goes from technology challenges to business model challenges, really. Actually, from business model challenges, then to technology. I guess this is probably a question for Sam, because you've been talking to lots of publishers, but what are some of the biggest challenges with business models, for example, and ROI, that you have heard from?
Well, to be honest, most people that we spoke to aren't monetizing their video and audio activity, and so the issue has to do with being clear as an organisation what benefit they are hoping to achieve from this and how much value, financial value, they're prepared to invest in it. It kind of comes back to my point about the challenge about metrics, is that that's not to say that nobody was making money out of it. Obviously, there's, Jove was selling it on subscription. You've got some people selling advertising for their podcasts. It's not that there's no money to be had. But for the most part, people are using it to promote. Quite a lot of it is either promoting content to drive usage or sales, or it's about building community. How do you measure whether you're building a community or not? I mean, yes, of course you can. You have a podcast with some enormous number of listeners. You clearly have evidence then that you have built a community. But measuring that in terms of how important that is to an organisation. So I'm starting to waffle now, and I apologise. I guess my point is that when we were talking to people, we were looking for, one of the questions we said we asked them was, how are you measuring your success? What is the return on investment here? And in almost all of the cases, the answer was, it contributes to our mission, and so we're prepared to invest in it because it's contributing to our mission. And one of the challenges is how we measure it, and how in a year's time, 2 years' time, we look back at what we're doing now and going, was that worth it? Did we succeed? And actually, not many people had answers for that. That's still an issue for us, not just for us, let's be honest, not just in this world, I mean, yes, okay, some people have wildly successful podcasts that they make lots of money out of, but there's a lot of people who don't, who still do good stuff, who still, so, sorry, I'll stop now.
No, that's good. Just by a show of hands, does anybody monetize video or audio content already? Yes. All right. But that's two, right? And do your organizations publish audio or video content already? All right, so it's a third of the room, probably. Right, so most of the initiatives are still free content or content that's added to existing products. So in terms of challenges, the other ones that we talked about a little bit are technology related and quality related. And that's something I wanted to touch on because I've heard a lot from publishers over the past couple of years on the quality of the video and how important that is. And I don't think that there's a consensus yet that it is important to invest in quality content. But do you or does anybody in the audience have any comments to make on how videos are received based on their quality? So it's really the production quality, whether the audio of a podcast or of the video production.
Does anybody out there? Let's get some people talking. Come on, you guys have got views.
Is it on?
Yeah.
There was just a study that came out in the last couple of weeks. We covered it at Scientific American about the fact that if audio is poor, researchers recorded interviews about their research in high quality audio and poor quality audio. And when people listened to the poor quality audio, not only did they not enjoy listening as much, they also believed in the research. They accepted the results of the research less enthusiastically, or with, they just didn't accept it as much. So the quality seems to be pretty high. Pretty important that the quality be high in terms of getting people to buy it in both senses of the word. I also want to say something about music, because you really want some music to leaven the sound for a podcast and for a video. And I use a program called Sony Acid Music Studio. It's got, yeah, it's got little loops of music, and 2 seconds, 4 seconds, and you can put these together. It doesn't take long to learn how to use it. You put them together and you can create musical beds that are royalty free. So, and it costs like $70, I think. So that's one way to deal with the music issue without having to worry about royalties and doing a lot of searching. You can create a dozen different musical beds of your own that you can use for years and years.
So related to that, in your organizations, if you do publish audio to video content, again by a show of hands, how many of you professionally produce content? Okay, versus author-generated YouTube, yes. All right. And do you have any, is that something that what is the feedback that you've heard generally about those videos? Have you heard of a demand for better quality, or, sorry, I'm looking at you because we're just raising. Have you?
It depends on the goal. So, Creative Daily, American Chemical Society, we have a professional studio. We've got green screen. We have CNN, of fabulous news magazines. We have journalists who are great on podcast, on video personalities. So ACS Reactions is our YouTube channel for kind of bite-sized explanations of chemistry in your daily life. It has 8 million followers. So we couldn't have author-produced content on that channel. There's an expectation of professionalism and quality. We invite all authors who select into an open access or author choice license to upload the most rudimentary of videos that is just sort of auto advancing slides with a narrative, live slides. It's very similar to what Sam was saying. We give very specific guidelines and templates, so they do have a consistent look. They don't look or sound terrible, but they are not terribly engaging. That is the intent there, is to make authors feel good, give them something to promote on social media. We'll do the same for them. And there is an increased usage with the articles, but it's not very strong. We partner with Figshare, so authors can put whatever sort of video they'd like, whether it's a JOVE type video, into their supporting materials, and it will show up in a widget on the article. And then I partner with the video promotions team for the sort of press release type videos whenever we have the opportunity and can embargo that material for journalists. So different uses. You've got to decide what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, one of the publishers that I spoke to about who wanted to remain nameless on this particular point about the quality of the author videos is they really struggle with the brand issue of if they're allowing they did, and then I think they stopped. They allowed the authors to create videos and upload them, and the sound was terrible. It just looked crap, and they just went, we just don't want to go there because it's our brand. We are a quality stamp. We don't want that associated with us. And then another publisher who both make their own videos and accept them from authors, their view was, well, actually, if it's an author-made video, it is so obviously an author-made video that actually it doesn't affect our brand. So, there's kind of different views there.
Next topic I want to talk about a little bit is discoverability. Discoverability for video content is a little bit different than for different reasons. First of all, because there's the expectation for a lot of people that video equals YouTube, which I don't think, well, I guess you could have that in the journal space for Google Scholar, for example, but Google Scholar is at least a scholarly system. So have you found, and this is for everybody and for you, have you found that the challenges related to discoverability for video and audio content are different from what you know about the discoverability issues with books and video and journals.
Yeah.
So what kind of challenges?
Well, I think
would you
basically,
see?
again, it's sort of one of those things that we as an industry have done an excellent job of making sure that our content, written content, is discoverable in so many ways that actually other industries are less on top of. And I think video is just, well, I'll stick with video because this is something I've thought about more for video than I have for audio, but I guess it applies to audio as well. It's that thing of you can't do, well, you can, but you need to think about the equivalent of a full text search for a video. And how do you do that? How do you expose that to search engines in a way that, in a similar way that you expose other content? And I mean, I think for promotional fluff, frankly, for video abstracts, as long as they're going alongside the video, but you kind of get into, if it's a video summary that lots of people are meant to be finding, it's a different issue, and we need to be thinking about it. It relates, as people often say, it relates nicely, I think, with the accessibility in the disability accessibility question, is that if you can address both of those at the same time, but again, it takes investment.
I think we're at time. Any last comments or questions? You can also come see us, obviously. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And thanks to our panel.